This is Dennis Ramundi. I'm here with my co-host, Phil Goldberg. Our podcast and YouTube channel, Spirit Matters, found at spiritmatterstalk.com. If you go to YouTube and type in Spirit Matters Talk, those three words, you'll get our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to not only listen to us, but see us. I want to thank everybody out there that's contributed to help keep us on the air. If anybody's interested in doing that, go to spiritmatterstalk.com and all the information will be there. Our archives now probably have well over 300 interviews in there, some great people, and another great person today, another great interview, author Dr. Jon Kolkin. He is an internationally recognized artist with a lifetime of experience pursuing his passions while simultaneously maintaining a healthy balance between his personal life and professional life. He is also, I understand, a medical doctor, as well as a photographer, so a man of many talents. Went through it's about 200 photos in his new book, Inner Harmony. Fantastic. Most in black and white, but really for somebody that loves photography, that's not particularly good myself, it just amazes me when people can capture what they capture. Recently, there's a international photography award presentations that are given, equivalent of like the Emmys or major awards in other fields of media. And his book came out second as a documentary. I should also mention that our guest today has spent significant time with the Dalai Lama, and we'll be talking to him about that as well. So thank you so very much for taking the time to come on today. We're excited for this interview. Phil.
Yes, we gave you a great introduction, but never mentioned your name. We are talking to Jon Kolkin.
Jon
Kolkin. and we should add that the Dalai Lama wrote the foreword to Jon's book, which is it's not just photographs. There's a lot of commentary, but also focuses on Buddhist practitioners throughout Asia. Just an exquisite book of photos. Jon, please tell us, you have a unique background. You're a medical doctor and a photographer. Tell us a little bit about your own spiritual background, what drew you to your interest in Buddhism and this book.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you both for having me on your podcast. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be with both of you today. As far as my spiritual path, I would say it's been somewhat typical and in other ways atypical. I grew up in Judaism, conservative synagogue, and kind of gravitated to more reform. That being said, about 23 years ago, because of my humanitarian work through Health Volunteers Overseas, a lot of the times I was in Asia. So my first trip was to Vietnam. And when I go, I'm immersed for an extended period of time in a local community and with embedded into a hospital that's a teaching hospital. And that was really my first exposure unknowingly to Buddhism. And since then have been back to Asia 21 times in 23 years, mostly through my medical work. And through that immersive process have gained a certain respect for just Eastern approaches in general to how we can live a healthier, less stressful, more balanced life. And part of that has been related to Buddhist practices. But when I've been with His Holiness, and we've only been together a few times, he emphasizes how important it is for everyone to find their own spiritual path. And there's not just one way to go. So when I'm asked, are you a Buddhist? I said, well, and not in a negative way, well, what do you mean? What's your definition? So for me, it's more a matter of pulling out nuggets from whatever spiritual faith traditions and also from atheists about how to view this existence that we have and how to navigate it through it in a healthy way. So quantum physics, as an example, is not really necessarily spiritual, but it also tends to reinforce some of what Buddhist teaching is all about, and also Judaism for that matter, particularly with the Kabbalah approach. So I would say that my spiritual background is kind of multi-layered. And when I first presented an earlier self-published version of this book that we've been talking about, here's the book, everyone.
Yes, hold it up.
Inner Harmony, Living in Balance, with forewords by not only His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but also the Queen Mother of Bhutan. But my initial attempt at this book, and one that I gave to His Holiness as a gift when I had my first private audience with him, was titled Inner Harmony, Learning from the Buddhist Spirit. And he calls me Dr. John, and he says, no, Dr. John, you can't call it that. Everybody's going to think you're going to try to convert them to Buddhism, which was never my intention. My intention was just, what are some fundamental properties, some foundational principles that are central, whether you're in the East or the West or anywhere in between, for living a less stressful, more balanced life. So the book, as an example, has 18 chapters. And rather than it being of specific geographic locations, it's about specific principles that are central to living a balanced life. So the images that come from 10 different countries that I've been honored to be in on multiple occasions, each chapter is about a concept such as compassion for the environment, or the ability to focus and calm the mind, or wisdom. So each of the chapters is related to that. And so my, quote, spiritual path is more a matter of, as both a physician and as an artist, all my work has to do with how do we find well-being. So there's a synergy and a dovetailing between my medical work and my work as an artist, because all my bodies of work, not just the Inner Harmony series, have always had some underlying theme related to well-being.
Let me ask you a follow-up question on that. Do you consider your photography an actual spiritual practice in and of itself, either from, whether it be from a Jewish tradition or a Buddhist tradition, that the actual process itself is one you can consider a spiritual exercise? And the second part of my question would be, have you incorporated this search for balance into your medical practice?
Yeah, great questions. I really appreciate that, Dennis. So first of all, as far as spiritual practice, and I know your particular blog, podcast is Spirit Matters, I've never really put it in that context of spirit. What I would say, though, and this gets back to reincarnation and the whole concepts of Buddhism about the consciousness, that our true being is the consciousness and not the body that we happen to be inhabiting, is that if you consider as part of the definition of the spirit or spirituality, the conscious, our intuition and our conscience and whatnot, that's all part of what I do, regardless of whether it's in the medical field or whether it's in the photography field. So I don't really separate out the mind from the heart. As you know, throughout Asia, they don't typically have a separate term for mind and heart. Sita is the Sanskrit for the heart mind. And when His Holiness would first talk to me about heart mind, I didn't know what he was talking about till I got a little explanation and did a little bit more research on it. As far as my medical practice is concerned, it's always part of how I approach my practice and my work with patients. And because I want to look at them as human beings, just like me, and His Holiness is adamant about he's just a simple monk in robes like everyone else. So as an example, I never refer to myself as a surgeon. I am skilled, if necessary, and if someone needs it, to do surgery that might involve anything from the tip of the finger to just above the elbow, but that's not how I perceive myself. I'm much more holistic in my approach. I'm a physician there to help people. And sometimes that may simply require a pat on the back, everything's okay, or here's a little bit of exercise to do, or whatever it might be. So this whole concept of what's my role and what is my spiritual role, it's to help others. Always, though, balanced with compassion for self. So that's one of the real challenges that many people in the medical field run into, which contributes to so much burnout and dissatisfaction, is the fact that they've not learned the skill sets for being able to effectively navigate caring for others while simultaneously caring for self.
John, the photographs in the book are just aesthetically gorgeous. It's an exquisitely designed, and the images are fabulous. But I'm curious about two things. Well, a lot, but why black and white? And what was it like? You capture very sort of intimate moments. By intimate, I mean contemplatively intimate moments with people engaged in various moments of Buddhist practice and disciplines. What was it like? Did you ever feel you were intruding? Were you given boundaries? Was there resistance at any time? Because I've been in India a lot, and I've been in temples, and sometimes you want to take out your camera and take a picture, and you say, no, I don't think that would be right. And sometimes you get dirty looks. So I'm curious about both those things.
Sure. Great questions, Phil. So the first one, the black and white, my intention is to capture the emotion of the situation. So first of all, the image has to speak with me. When I'm in an environment, it's what is exciting to me, what connects with my heart mind. So that's the first thing that's key. The second thing is that when there is color, the natural tendency for most of us is to focus in on the color rather than what's going on the inside. So the book is called Inner Harmony, Living in Balance. Inner harmony, looking on what's going on the inside. So black and white tends to move us away from our natural world and focus more on the emotion from my perspective. So when I'm exhibiting the Inner Harmony series, regardless of whether it's at a museum or an art gallery, anywhere, US, overseas, whatever, the photographs are usually produced, and I do them myself, as palladium prints. Palladium prints is an old technique from the late 1800s, and rather than with typical digital photography where the ink is laid onto the surface, with palladium prints, it's 100% cotton paper. You make up a chemical and you pour it onto the paper and spread it out with a paintbrush. And without getting to all the details, after you go through the developing process, it's impregnated into the paper, and it's a much more of an emotional, textural, warm feeling to it. So that's what I wanted to do. Tanoose, the publisher, is well known around the world for publishing photography books, one of the world's leading publishers. However, they have a clientele that follows them that also is interested in color photographs. So they asked if I might do at least 20 out of the 220 as color, and that's the reason they're color photographs. I just gave a presentation actually last night to a photography group, but last week also at Maine Media Workshops, online, international, on how to be respectful when photographing in an unfamiliar cultural setting. So that hopefully leads to addressing your second question about being able to photograph. So that's about it was about a 2-hour presentation last night for the photography group. And basically, it really boils down to I'm embedded into a community, and people know that I'm there as a humanitarian, as a volunteer for an extended period of time, and also about my artwork. So I get introduced, and then I oftentimes go through a very long process of them getting to know me before ever even considering to bring out my camera. And I also start to learn about the culture and the do's and the don'ts, and extremely, extremely careful and respectful about those. And it sometimes takes a long, long time to get permission. Sometimes I don't. I also, in the Buddhist tradition, have to have realistic expectations or no expectations. And I may go somewhere, and I can tell stories about this, where in 1 month's time, I may get a total of 6 photographs that I think are worthy of sharing. I also share the photographs with whatever location I'm photographing for them to use for free. And if there's any photograph I might take that's inappropriate, it's destroyed. I never use flash. I don't use tripods. I'm neutrally dressed in the background, playing with them, horsing around the day before, whatever it is, so they know me. Nothing's posed. Everything is natural.
Now, John, when you go out, I'm just curious of your process. Do you go out on any given day and think, all right, I'm going to try to get some kids playing. I'm going to try to get some monks in a temple, or do you just go out and explore and see what comes to you? And then once you take it in the book, if you have 200 photos, maybe you took 1,000 photos, maybe 5,000 photos. What was the selection process like?
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't go out with an intention of I'm going to shoot a specific thing, other than it may be like I've been in Bhutan 5 times. And when I go to Bhutan, I'm invited in by the government because I'm working in the hospital, and I'm there for over a month. You try to go as a tourist to Bhutan, you, number one, have to have a guide. Number two, you're only allowed to go to certain places. Number three, you're only allowed to be there for 10, maybe they've opened it to 14 days. Whereas I'm there, I'm able to go around by myself back to the same locations time after time after time. People get to know me. I know the places to go. I've been introduced. So it's an extended process. So that's really what's involved with that. And it's different in every location. I can tell you all kinds of stories about how I end up getting access, which is why I think people consider my photographs so extremely rare. They're not your typical photographs in those locations. And, you know, the people, you know, already know me. I forgot what your second question.
The second question is what criteria do you use when selecting? You know, if you have 200 photos in the book, you probably took many, many more. How did you select?
Sure. Well, first of all, the way the book came about is I was contacted by someone who was involved with publishing Ansel Adams books. They saw the work, and it was after His Holiness, during a private audience, we were holding hands, and he encouraged me to join him in promoting compassion worldwide. So I've been doing a number of projects. We formed a foundation, the Shades of Compassion Foundation, are doing a number of projects. One's a traveling museum exhibition that just has 2 of my pieces, but pieces by Ansel Adams, Imogene Cunningham, the world's leading photographers on compassion. But the bottom line is that that when I have these opportunities, I'm taking photographs, but in some locations, in most of the situations, I'm in a contemplative mindset. So I'm not taking thousands of photographs. In fact, in some cases, I was at a monastery nunnery retreat in Myanmar, a 9-hour drive by bus from Yangon to this remote forest where there are 1,000 of them on the side of this mountain. And everyone was meditating 8.5 hours a day. I was taking maybe 6 shots per hour. So I don't have a lot of photographs to go through, number one. despite photographing for 23, well, this series, the Inner Harmony series, started 13 years ago in China.
Wow.
But what ended up happening with Ansel Adams' group is Lance Heidi, who designed 14 of Ansel Adams' books. He became the book's designer and my agent. And he has a process, the same one he used with Ansel Adams, to go through his photographs. So we narrowed it down to, I ended up showing him about 1,100 photographs, and that's what we started with. And it was agony getting it down to 220. So we've got tons for other books if and when I have the energy to do one. But we kind of broke it down based on what the themes of the 18 chapters would be. And that's how we started narrowing it down and then telling a story in each chapter. Each chapter starts out with a short poem by Dr. Paula Arai, who's a PhD Buddhist scholar. She's an exquisite poet. And that's on whatever the subject matter is of that chapter. And then I just have, as you both know, a short, sort of not an essay, but just an experience, typically one of my experiences that is in some way related to what that chapter is all about. And so it's just trying to tell a narrative story through the photographs, pretty much.
John, we should also mention that the book is both in English and German. So our listeners in Berlin and Munich and elsewhere, you can read it in your native tongue. Also, you were in the photographs, at least, come from 10 different countries that are predominantly Buddhist. You then, therefore, had an experience of a wide variety of Buddhist orientations and practices. I think people here in America especially think of Buddhism, they think of mindfulness practice. Maybe they think of the Dalai Lama or Zen. And we have very little exposure to the full breadth and variety of Buddhist spirituality. What was that like? What can you say about that breadth of practice? And did anything you were exposed to in your travels surprise you?
Excellent questions. Well, first of all, I tend to take a helicopter view of most things. So I try to step back and look at what are the core principles, what are the core values, what is the main thing that it's being taught to us. And because of that, what it does for me is it helps me see the universal relevance. So core principles in Buddhism, when you get away from my perspective, and again, I'm not a scholar, this is all what I've absorbed, core principles, when you get away from the ritual part of it, are fairly similar. And in fact, they're not that much different than other faith traditions. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I mean, it's the golden rule.
Golden rule.
And it's just a matter of some of the nuances of how people approach that can be different. But one of the things that was particularly striking to me throughout Asia, and not just in Buddhism, but in general, is this mindset of collectivism. We're all in this together, rather than what we see in the United States about the individual, as opposed to the interconnectedness and the synergies and the importance of reliance on each other. So that, I think, was one of the things that was particularly striking to me, regardless of where throughout Asia I might be. And remember, I'm seeing the underbelly because I'm in the hospitals and I know what's really going on to a certain extent. So I know what's in the mindset about, are we all in this together, and do we treat each other equally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw much more of that. Not that in the United States, that in the medical field, we don't, as doctors and nurses, we don't treat people with neutrality, but it doesn't permeate through society as much as it does throughout Asia. As an example, in Bhutan, when they had, for those who don't know Bhutan, it's a landlocked, the only Buddhist kingdom in the world, in the Himalayas, 750,000 residents. Very difficult to get from one town or one city to another. The roads are challenging. When they had enough of a stockpile of COVID vaccine a couple of months ago to give the first shot to all of the adults in the whole country, the king of Bhutan, who's the 5th king of Bhutan, said, what we're going to do is we're going to organize it so that the vaccine is available everywhere at the exact same time for 14 days. Okay. And I am not going to get vaccinated until the 14th day, because I want to make sure that everyone in the kingdom has the opportunity to get vaccinated before I get vaccinated.
Wow.
Within 14 days, 92% of the population was vaccinated. Now, skip forward another couple of months, 98% of the population has had their second vaccine.
Wow.
So that's a mindset. That's a mindset. And I see that throughout Asia, that I don't see as much in the United States. And Buddhism clearly, and His Holiness is a prime example of, we're all in this together.
It's very nice. I have maybe a final question from my side, and that is, what do you hope people get out of the book, and what made you select the photo that you put on the cover?
Sure. Great questions. Well, I think no expectations again. I think it's a matter of people getting immersed in the images and finding narratives that resonate with each individual, and then coming back to them and maybe getting a new nuance when maybe it's a different day, the moon cycle is different, whatever it might be, and just going back and just living with the images and living with the stories and living with the poetry, and then see where it takes you. And hopefully it will plant some seeds for living in harmony with life balance. We're all on that same journey. None of us is going to reach the end of enlightenment, very few. It's all about the journey. The reason for the image on the front, that's a great question. That piece is called Nurtured. That was taken at a monastery outside of Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama's world headquarters is. And I was sitting with a senior monk one day. I was living there. He had entered the monastery when he was 6 years of age, the same age as the boy in this photograph. And he invited me to his private quarters and I was asking him a couple of questions. And one of the things I asked him about was, tell me a little bit about your family. After a while, it became clear he wasn't talking about his biological family. He was talking about the monks that raised him. So this particular picture, this particular boy, and remember, I never use artificial light, nothing's posed. He and I were hanging out with his friends the day before. They were all scrubby and they were playing cricket and rolling around in the ground, doing push-ups and everything else. We were all kidding around. This was during the beginning of a puja ceremony, so they were all kind of lining up, getting ready to start. And you'll notice that there's a hand on his head. Well, as those that have been in Asia know, the head is where the mind is located. It's a very sacred part of the body. And no one would dare put their hand on a child's head unless they were a close family member. So the fact that this hand is on this boy's head signifies family. You'll also notice that the way the hands are interacting, if anyone's had a small child and they want to walk across the street, it's holding on to the index finger. You also notice there's another hand over his heart mind. So the idea here is that we need to expand our view of what we consider family, not just our biological family. And some may have challenges with members of their biological family. You can still be compassionate toward them, but you don't have to get sucked into their agony. You can find brothers and sisters outside of your biological family. That's the way we should view family, expanded view of what family is. So this particular image is supposed to be significant of the concept of how do we view family? What is our collective society? That includes animals, that includes the environment, that includes whatever might be past that from a spiritual perspective and otherwise.
Jon, you have at least two areas of expertise. Very few of our listeners are going to attempt surgery, but we all photograph. We all have cameras in our pockets now. And in my experience, I have found that when I am thinking of taking pictures, even in my own amateurish way, there's something about the process that enriches the experience of where I am, because there's something about looking and framing and all that. On the other hand, the impulse to take pictures all the time can be a distraction. I've been to museums in the last 5 or 10 years and been absolutely mind-boggled by people who just walk around taking pictures of the paintings and never stop to look at them and pose in front of them when I'm trying to enjoy the experience. So tell us something, advise us about the use of our cameras to enhance experience as opposed to being a distraction from direct experience.
Good question.
Yeah, it's a matter of mindset and objectives. There's nothing wrong with someone whose only objective is to document the moment. That's their right, assuming they don't get in the way of someone else. Okay. But the reality also is, in my opinion, that a lot of people, and I may be too harsh in saying sleepwalk through life, never really enriching their experience or even thinking about where do I really obtain value in my life? What are my main values and how do I navigate through life with guided by my values? So this is what gets into, and I've given presentations ad nauseum on life balance. I'm also a trained integrative medicine health coach through Duke University. And I think that if people don't understand what their values are clearly, then making decisions as they go throughout the day can be challenging because we're constantly distracted. However, once one knows what their values are, then they're able to make priorities. What are their priorities in their life? What are they going to really focus on the most? And then once they know their values and their priorities, then they can make decisions, which we make thousands of times throughout the day. Do I want to spend that extra time doing X, Y, or Z? How much of that exhibition do I want to see? Do I want to come back multiple times? Do I want to just be absorbed for 20 minutes with one image and go into depth? Is that going to nurture me in some way versus, okay, check that one off the list? So when people go on trips to other countries or whatever, a lot of them are these whirlwind tours. Yeah, I've been to XXXX country, but were you really there? No. So I think it really comes back to setting boundaries, priorities, and focus, which Buddhism is very good about teaching focus and seeing things clearly, having realistic expectations. So That's one of the things, again, that I talk about all the time. And I have this thing I go through with people, the 24 stone rule of consider each stone 1 hour in your day and put those into categories of how much do I spend on sleep. Sleep, by the way, is the cornerstone of good physical and emotional health. And if you don't get 7 to 8 to 9 hours, you're behind before you even get started. But if people would take the time to decide how much of their time are they really spending that are related to what their priorities are, they would see that a lot of their time is wasted. Not that we don't need downtime, but a lot of it's wasted. And could I potentially take one of those stones and cut it into quarters and take 15 minutes twice a week to do something that I kept saying I was going to do and was important to me, but I never did? So there are all these different things that are important, and as we navigate, whether it's through a museum setting or anywhere else.
Phil, any final questions?
No, I want to thank Jon for being with us. I want to encourage everybody to get his book and use it in a contemplative way. You want to hold it up again, Jon? And
yeah, and one more comment. So the proceeds that I receive from book sales, again, this gets to synergies and why am I doing what I'm doing, go to 2 nonprofits, 50% to one and 50% to the other. The first one is C-Learning, social, emotional, and ethical learning through Emory University that was, the Dalai Lama was very instrumental in starting that. And it teaches compassion and ethics to children around the world, K through 12. It's a free program. The other half goes to a nonprofit that empowers disadvantaged women. So people should know that this is all part of the synergy of the things that I'm trying to do. There are still some books available on Amazon. It's almost sold out. There's another shipment coming from Europe that'll get here, but maybe not for another month to 6 weeks, depending on how the ships are going.
Right.
People are also, by all means, welcome to contact me directly if they have, questions or they want some mentoring, which I do for free, about their photography or about life balance. All those things that can be reached through my website, kolkinphotography.com. There's an inquiry section there. So people are welcome to get in touch with me. I'm trying to make myself available with balance to people. If there are organizations that would like me to speak, I'm more than happy to do that and whatnot.
We'll have all of that information posted, and I guarantee anyone who gets the book, they will go through it many times because it's fascinating and they're photos. And I think when you look at great photos like that, you learn a lot about yourself and you learn about where you are on your own journey as you look at it month after month, year after year. And so highly, highly recommend.
I would add that we're recording this a few weeks before it will be posted. So Jon's estimate of when books will be available may be even closer than.
We'll have all of that posted up, yeah.
Okay, thank you again, Jon. Best of luck with all your wonderful work. And let's all take away the message of being compassionate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Care.
Phil, that was Jon Kolkin. But before we get into the discussion, please, if you're listening on the podcast or watching on the YouTube channel, hit the button that says subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, but we'd love to have you as a subscriber to our station. Hopefully that will help give us longevity. And don't forget our archives, over 300 shows, really great stuff in there. And another wonderful interview. That was fascinating. Medical doctor, photographer, get the book, fabulous photos. about all but 20, I think, so 90% are black and white, 20 in color. And he explains why that is. And it really captures a lot in that. And
Yeah.
Bhutan, he was in Bhutan. I actually tried going to Bhutan a couple of times, or I had some plans to go. Very difficult country to get into. You have to have a guide. There are many restrictions on it, but it's like Shangri-La. It's a culture that's been extremely protected, and they want to maintain the cultural integrity, and pretty spectacular place, I've been told, and from the photos I've seen. But in any event, really a wonderful discussion with him today.
And, the pictures are not only beautiful, but they capture certain intimacy, a spiritual intimacy that is very revealing. And, you could go through the book almost like a contemplative exercise and linger with each picture and feel like you're present in these sacred moments. It's a beautiful thing in that.
Yeah, and I mentioned to him, and I really feel that photos like that you look at and you see different things at different times, and it tells you a lot of, tells a person a lot about where they're at and what they're going through at any given time. Just like reading a book, reading something like the Bhagavad Gita at different times, it's a good way to see if and how you're evolving or growing. And same things with these photos. He mentioned in Bhutan, the protocol for taking photos. I know I've been in some countries like in Morocco, where people generally don't like getting their picture taken unless you ask them. Even here in Iowa, where I am, if you want to take a picture of the Amish, they're not so crazy about it. You want to talk to them and make sure they're comfortable with it. And I think that's a respectful and the right thing to do. And certainly that was his approach in Bhutan. And he took far fewer photos than I thought he would have taken. It wasn't just snap, snap, snap. It had to be the right time, right place. But he certainly came up with some great ones. And his whole emphasis on compassion comes across in his photos.
When I'm in India, everybody's taking pictures because it's such a tourist place.
Right.
And you see people, especially if they have children around, they're happy. They just, smile and let you take a picture, or they'll wave. And in many instances, they'll want you to pose with them so they can take pictures of the Westerner visiting the temple or whatever. It's fascinating, especially I've noticed blonde women. There's no blonde women in India who are native to the country. So when they see a blonde woman, they want to, they think it's great. They want to take a picture with her, and it's all very friendly, but that's tourist stuff. Jon was getting stuff that, tourists don't see because he was part of the culture. He was integrated into it and took pictures only at certain moments when it was okay to do. That's rare. I mean, even in India, you go to temples and, they'll wave you away with camera in places. They don't want you intruding on the, a ritual or a sacred rite or something. So, yeah. Yeah,
he also discussed his interactions with the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama really encouraging him to spread this message of compassion, which he has done, and his book does that. And he's a medical doctor. He works with, when he went to Bhutan, he was not only taking photographs, he was actually working in the hospital. So like he said in the interview, he really sees what's going on. He gets into the nitty gritty, meets people of all sorts, is with people when they're going through very, very tough time. So, and I think doctors in general, you go into medicine because you have some level of compassion, but he certainly has developed that in a very, very powerful way. And I think it'd be great if he went to medical schools and gave talks, because
maybe he does.
Yeah, maybe he does. And but his whole message of compassion is a wonderful one, and we certainly need it in the world today, in the United States, everywhere. Because you don't always get that message. If you watch movies, TV, you look at social media, whatever, it's not always a message of compassion. And hopefully our show is inspiring people for deeper, more spiritual values. And with greater spiritual development, I think compassion naturally comes.
Yeah, and we have such diverse programming that people can sort of get a lesson in comparative spirituality, and when you see the commonality of all these different approaches to spirituality, it kind of encourages that openness that produces compassion and empathy. And the Dalai Lama, is a great emissary for compassion and for the kind of spiritual authority that doesn't seek to convert anybody.
Right.
And, we need more, or to proclaim his way, the best way, or the only way. And he's a great living example of that.
Right. I think even religions of conversion would do better if they didn't try to talk people into converting, and they just showed a good example, and then people would want to do what they do, or fall in line with their belief system more readily than forced conversions. And you hear the stories of colonialism and what happened, and people being forced to convert in Native American schools in North America. There was a lot of that, and it just it's not good. And I think the approach the Dalai Lama uses of being very universal and seeing the good and the compassionate and the truth in many different versions is where we should, I believe, be headed. Our show, Contemporary Spirituality, we try to really approach it from every angle. And what I've learned in these 300 plus interviews is the commonality amongst folks seeking spiritual development from whatever angle or tradition you're coming from.
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, you wrote American Veda. In that book, you talk about, one sort of body of belief and tradition coming from the East to the West, and how in many cases there was the ability to integrate that.
Oh, that's why, there was something to write about in a book like American Veda, because it had a huge impact on the culture without anybody trying to convert anybody. Every teacher who came here, every guru, every swami, every yoga master, similarly, every Buddhist teacher, always it was, these teachings are universal. You can accept them, reject them, you could take them into your life, stay a Christian, stay a Jew, whatever, be an atheist, it doesn't matter. You can look at these any way you want and integrate them into your life any way you want. That's very appealing to Americans. And the image of the missionary abroad, no one's out there forcing conversions anymore, but they're coercing them. There's a lot of coercive missionary work going on in Asia and in Africa. It's almost like outright bribery, and but I don't want to get into that. But
needless to say, I mean, it's not necessary. They would do much better by just setting a good example.
And there are some. There's Christian missionaries who are there, and they go and open a hospital or open a school, and they're there to serve their God. And they're not forcing
I would say by and large, people that go into missionary work are good people that want to help other people.
Yeah, but conversion.
And sometimes people get carried away.
Helping by conversion, by converting them too.
It's when they see beyond that. I spent time in Africa, and I would see that. I would just think, wait a second, just help people for the sake of helping people. It doesn't be not to convert them. And if you make that available and they choose to do that, wonderful.
It's a very big controversial thing in India at the moment, that aggressive, coercive conversion attempts.
We should say that Phil leads trips to India.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that. I don't think you've ever talked to our listeners about what you do.
Well, we've done 4 tours now. They're always 3 to 4 weeks. And we bring 20, 23, 4 people. And
Where do you go?
depends on, we change it each time.
But it's India.
India, yeah.
Yeah.
They're all rooted in American Veda. We take people primarily to places associated with the famous gurus that they're familiar with, and other, cultural and spiritual settings. And it's a great thing. I get a lot out of it myself. The people always do. We had to cancel the last scheduled one because of COVID, but we're scheduling one for next October of 2022. And that'll be up on the web probably by the time people see this.
Right. This is
Thanks for asking, Dennis.
You're welcome. It was not solicited. It just came out. And again, hit those subscribe buttons. We would really like that. We are trying to stay on the air, and we hope to do so. And we always want to be free and available to everyone everywhere for free. There have been people out there that have contributed to help keep us on the air. We are not a nonprofit. It's not a donation. It's a contribution. And if you wish to do so, either on a regular basis or a one-time basis, go to spiritmatterstalk.com, and you'll get that information as to how to support us from there. And again, we are now also a YouTube channel. And if you go to YouTube and just type in 3 words, Spirit Matters Talk, we will pop up. And we have, I don't know, at least a couple of dozen, maybe more on video now. And that's growing. And we have many, many subscribers there. And we're hoping to grow more. And we want to upgrade our equipment and systems. And so whether you want to watch us or you prefer just to listen to us and not see us, we are available to you now. So any final words, Phil?
No, people Google Jon Kolkin and buy his book.
Yeah, and the name of the book?
Inner Harmony.
Inner Harmony.
Isn't that what it is? Wait, let's make sure I got that right. Yeah, Inner Harmony, Living in Balance.
Right. Jon Kolkin with
proceeds,
a Kolkin.
I'm doubly glad to recommend it because the proceeds go to very good charities.
Right. That's exactly. He explained that in the interview.
Okay.
Phil, until next time.
Next time.